Hey, everybody, live from the On Target Podcast studios in beautiful Maitland/Orlando, Florida. It's the Tom Squared Tech Talk Podcast with your hosts, Tom Jelnick and Tom Craig. Hey, everybody, welcome back, all 11, or is it up to 13 yet, Tom, listeners to the T-Squared Tech Talk Podcast.
You are not going to believe this, Tom.
What's going on?
Latest results show the number past 30.
That's off the hook, as the kids say.
I don't know 30 people.
Do the kids say that anymore? Off the hook?
You know, it's hard to keep up with what the kids are doing these days.
Is it off the chain?
Now I think you're onto something. Which is different from off the wall. I think that was a 90s thing.
Or is it on the wall?
It depends on what your kids are doing.
I know it's lit. How's that grab you?
Now
I am tuned into this generation like you wouldn't believe, Tom.
Which is why you are so well versed about today's topic.
I'm so well versed that my own daughters correct me when I use it improperly. So we'll walk into a busy restaurant and I'm like, this place is lit. And they instantly, both of them, 15 and 10, correct me that I've improperly used that. So that's not how you use that word.
Well, you're doing better than me. I walked over to the beach the other day with my nieces and nephews and said, man, what a beautiful day. This is sure fleek. And they said, Uncle
fleek.
Tom, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to sound cool.
Do you snort the fleek now? Is that what they...
I don't even know what
Are those
fleek
like
is.
bath salts?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they are. Yeah, I think they're illegal in most states.
I hope they are. Let's not do drugs, kids. Drugs
so stay
are
away
bad.
from fleek, everyone.
Yeah, fleek. Get the fleek out of here, Tom.
I tell you.
So listen, we are pleased as punch. I love saying that. We are pleased as punch to be here with you today, coming to you from the On Target Podcast studios in not so sunny Maitland, Florida, Tom.
There's a little bit of rain out there today, but that's okay. It makes you appreciate all the other days down here in Central Florida.
Yeah, especially when it's 114 freaking degrees outside.
Yes, and we know a lot about that heat.
It has been super swampy this week.
It has, and but that's okay. It allows us to come into here and get in touch with our listeners and provide a little bit more sound advice.
Sound advice is great, Tom, and I love getting in touch with our visitors. So listen, there's a bit of an epidemic with the kids, Tom.
There is, and I don't know which one we're talking about because there's an awful lot of them, but let's just stick to the internet on this one.
We probably should.
Yep. Just trying to keep the kids safe. We had talked about in one of our other podcasts about kids' information not being put out there on the internet for everyone else to see. So let's talk about how they can keep that safe.
I want to break that down, Tom. So here, listen, a couple pointers. I have, as I mentioned, a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. The 15-year-old is always in the phone, as I'm sure you can imagine. Even the little one, the 10-year-old, my goodness, she is a YouTuber. She's always in front of a computer. She's always playing these games like there's one with animals, Animal Jam. And, there's some chat components built into some of these games, Tom, and you've got to pay attention to what the kids are doing. And that's rule number one of being a good parent with technology.
Absolutely. And that's why it's a real good idea that when you're placing your computer, that you put it in a general area of the house.
That is great advice.
Yeah, we don't want to go sticking it away in their rooms where the door is usually closed anyway.
They are, and thank God in my house are closed because the floors, Tom, they would, the OCD in me. Wow.
Yeah. I tell you, I don't know how parents do it. That's why I'm happy being an uncle. But being an uncle means that my brothers lean on me for advice on how we're going to keep the nieces and nephews safe. So that's been a challenge for me, and I'm sure it's been a challenge for you, being a father of two wonderful kids.
They are wonderful for the most part, and some advice that you just gave is great. We took the computer, the Mac, if you will. Do you know what that is, Tom? Do you know what a Mac is? They're nice.
I saw a commercial for those in '84 once.
They compared that to a Mac or to a PC, didn't they?
It was so long ago. I don't remember. Are they still around? Do they still sell them?
I think they're up to $1 trillion bucks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Apple, the $1 trillion company, first one in America.
So we have a nice iMac, and truth be told, it's about 15 years old and still running. It's not that old. I made that up. It's probably 12 years old. But anyway, it's old. It's a dinosaur. But it sits in the kitchen at a bar where I can always see what's happening with my daughter online.
That is a great idea. And anyone who's ever had employees knows how important it is to keep an eye on what's going on the computer. And even more so with the kids, because they're not fully versed in what could happen to them out there, and how dangerous it is. Such as some of the apps that they're using these days. I can't even keep up with all the apps they're using. Everything from Find My Friends to Snapchat to Mappin. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the majority of these apps are allowing other people to see where these kids are going.
Right.
And even apps like Mappin, you can choose to go invisible, but after a few minutes, it automatically reactivates location sharing. So if somebody else, again, you always want to think about who's 2 people over, who's 3 people over. So if somebody is a friend of your kids and can map them, who's to say that the people 2 or 3 over can't? So we don't want our kids a location of where they're going everywhere, especially in today's day and age. So that's pretty important to turn those things off, or to just be aware that maybe you shouldn't be using some of these apps that are using location sharing.
Yeah, a lot of this starts with a conversation as a responsible parent. Now, listen, I am not living in some delusional world to think that my kids don't pay attention to me, because trust me, my oldest doesn't usually pay attention to me. But I think you need to have the conversation about stranger danger online, because you're right. It's interesting when you were talking about these tracking apps, I thought you were going to go a completely different way and say that's great for parents to know where the kids are. But I get exactly what you're saying. It's a creeper problem.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you're right. It is a great way to see where your wife is or your kids. But it's important that your kids be aware, because as you said, kids aren't that well versed into the stranger danger and
Sure.
who's out there on the internet. So it's important that you have that conversation with them. And as we all know, sending your kid out on the internet is like sending your kid out into the real world. Every child is going to require a little bit different advice. Some might just need a curfew to be home at, and some might need a breathalyzer when they get home.
You're damn right about that, Tom.
So
I think I was the latter when I was a child.
Yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
Yeah, good call.
But I just would like to take a moment to apologize to my parents really quick for those late evenings when I didn't make curfew. But no, so it's really important that you know your children, know what they're doing. In fact, it might be a good idea to have an access to their apps or
Yeah.
their phone.
Yeah, and that's what we do as a family.
Yeah.
With my 2 girls, my wife and I will actually, my wife does it more than I do, but she takes the kids' phones during the day, and we'll go through it, and they know we're going to go through it. So we're looking for any type of bullying. We're looking for any type of new app that we as parents haven't necessarily sanctioned, if you will.
Smart move.
So check this out. Did you know, Tom, that there is an app that kids can download? There's several of them, actually, but one of them looks damn near like a calculator app.
Really?
And it's designed to fake out parents, right? So you're scrolling through your kid's phone and there's a calculator. Kids need calculators too. What they do is they click it and they put in a certain digit that they've used to lock it down on the calculator.
Interesting.
It gives them access into a back door where they can keep photos or, God forbid, whatever they're keeping there that I probably don't want to know about anyway. But the point is, there are apps out there designed to keep stuff away from parents, and you've got to know that.
So there's 2 takeaways I have from that. First off, that it's just amazing that these kids are so smart as to use these things to get around the parents' eyes. But even more shocking to me is the fact that these apps are being made for kids to hide their information. Who's making these apps?
Oh my gosh. And they all talk about it. They go to school and they're like, oh, have you downloaded X? And
yeah, it's impossible. Even if, homeschooled kids, 2 of my nieces are not in public school, but there's plenty of social opportunities for them to go out there and hear about the latest things.
Right.
So it's not just at school, it's anywhere. It could be church, the swim meet, the rec center, anywhere. The kids are going to talk and they're going to find out about this stuff.
Well, Tom, so, we've talked a little bit we talked about some apps. We talked about stranger danger, right? I think the other thing we should talk about and spend a little bit of time on is what can you do to your home network to maybe keep things under control or kind of poke around to make sure that your kids aren't going to not so good websites?
Exactly. Well, there's some software out there that parents can use to monitor their kids' activity on the internet, and that's wise to use, especially for those children who don't just need the curfew; they need the breathalyzer.
Yeah.
Perhaps you should put an app on their phone that allows you to see what apps and what activity is going on. Because as we all know, you can go in and delete some messages off some applications. So it'd be nice to know what they're doing when they think we're not watching. Um,
And listen, we're not here to tell parents you need to be stalkers, but like if you do have some suspicion, I mean, it's that serious. You need to know what your kids are up to, especially online. I mean,
exactly.
they could stumble into, God forbid, a really nasty neighborhood online. And I mean, there's horror stories of kids being, lured into some creeper's van down by the
Happens
river.
every day. And according to Scholastic, 1 out of every 5 kids gets a sexual solicitation online at some point.
It's disgusting.
It's just amazing when you think about that 1 out of every 5. It's just amazing. So make sure that the strangers, predators, and cyber bullies are all kept at bay, and simplify your child's screen name. Maybe it shouldn't be their name or have some personal information about them. Make sure, again, that it doesn't reveal their age. Maybe keep their gender off there and their hometown off there. Just think about when you're creating these things that if your child posts something and it becomes popular and it gets caught up on the internet, goes viral.
Yeah.
Now everybody is going to see on their profile what they put up there. So
right. We want to protect their identity. We want to certainly protect them from online predators. We want to protect them from bullying. I mean, I take that job as a parent very seriously. My job is to make sure my kids are freaking protected.
And as an uncle, it's important to me that my nieces and nephews they grow up into a credit history that is their own.
Yeah.
And not someone else's.
Yeah. I just did a piece on that on TV. It was fascinating. So kids you don't realize it as a parent, but your kid already has once they get that social security number, they're starting to get a credit history. And God, if a cyber thug gets a hold of that.
I tell you, and that's worth money on the internet.
Right.
Pediatric database was recently breached, and there was a large amount of profiles out there of children with their birth dates, their gender, social security number, and all of that was only $2.25 per profile. Tom.
Very economical, Tom.
I tell you, it's just, it's on one hand you think, wow, I can't believe that people pay that, but on the other hand, you think about I think they stole 250 million records.
Wow.
And so you start selling those at $2 each, and somebody out there is getting pretty rich off of our data. So it might behoove you to put a freeze on your kid's credit.
That would be my advice, absolutely.
Yep. So if they're not going out to buy a car at age 6,
which they shouldn't be,
unless
they're buying one for me, Tom.
That's right. And then they need a large down payment on that one.
They do,
Yeah.
which I think you can help with.
That's
what being an uncle is all about, really.
No, it's about sending them home all sugared up. That's my job.
Nice. I like that.
Yep. But no. So think about that when creating these profiles for your kids.
That's some really sound advice. It's protecting their profile, it's protecting them from bullying, keeping them away from cyber creeps. That is our mission as parents.
And the good thing is that teens these days, as I'm sure you as a father know, they are pretty hesitant to give out any information to their family, let alone strangers.
God, I know that.
So they're building profiles that are more and more obscure and hard to tell who they are. So that's great. And so it's important, again, that you know your children, know where their weaknesses are on the internet, and try to address those.
Here's one other thing, Tom, that occurred to me as you were saying that. Brilliant, by the way. But listen, my daughter is a sophomore in high school, a great athlete, and guess who's paying attention to her right now?
Who's that?
Colleges, Tom.
Yeah?
I better get another job or create about 92 more podcasts. But here's the thing. Colleges are starting to pay attention to her because of her talent. Guess what they pay attention to?
What's that?
Her social media posts.
Ah, yes.
Right? And I've actually seen her post one thing that I did not feel good about because it was picking on somebody in a ribbing way. But I'm like, that stuff stays with you, and you've got to be so cautious about what you're posting. I'm encouraging parents to pay attention and follow their kids on whatever channels they're on to see what they are posting, because they're not thinking in that 14, 15-year-old brain about, seeing the gravity of that particular post.
Exactly. And as we know, snarkiness does not travel well across the internet. It can be read many different ways, and what could be a light joke made by somebody could be seriously offensive to somebody else. And then, of course, does that hamper your child's odds of getting into college, or will it hurt them from getting a job 15, 20 years
And
from
the
now?
answer to that is hell yeah, it will. Because I'll tell you, anyone that applies to OnTarget, and I'm sure at Advanced System Solutions, we're looking at these people. I look at them from every angle.
Absolutely.
I Google search them. I look in images. I look for. Maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I look to see if they've been arrested. I mean, I want to know who's coming to work for me. And the thing that I tell people, Google never forgets. So
Amen.
We've got to teach our kid that stuff. So
Not
that
just Google, but the whole internet.
Everybody.
All Twitter and everything else. If you put it out there, it doesn't matter if you delete it 10 seconds later. It got picked up by somebody, and it will forever be found. As we're seeing more and more in the news these days.
Absolutely.
People being haunted by things they did 10, 15 years ago. So it's really important that you think about what you're putting out there and relay that to your kids. Very important about what they're posting.
Tom, one other tip I have here. So, these devices that we have, and I'm picking up my smartphone and looking at the beautiful shiny Mac that's in front of us that is responsible for all of this stuff happening, unlike your PC. So what's happening is my children are getting a little bit addicted to these things. Now, I have a device at home called Google Wi-Fi, and there's several variants of this.
Okay.
It's a device, and it's kind of like a repeater, so it's making the signal work in the whole house. The cool thing about it, Tom, is that I can tell Google Wi-Fi when to shut my kid's phone down, when to shut the tablet down.
Fantastic.
And I can block them. So if they're not doing their homework, not doing their chores, and they're screwing around on Fortnite, I am God in the house, and I can turn that signal off. I will shut it down, Tom.
I know how powerful that can be. My nephew, if you talk about taking the tablet away, it's if you want to get him to jump,
that's how you do it.
I tell you.
Yeah, you pull away some Wi-Fi, we got problems in the house. But listen, if that room's not getting cleaned and I can't see the floor, I'm shutting it down, Tom.
That's a smart man.
Yes, I have some power in the house. That's about the only power I have in the house, if we're being honest. But I control that.
Well, it's an important power to have, and it's something that all parents should have, is being able to keep track of those accounts. Something that I've been known to do as well is to make sure you have the login to those accounts.
Yep.
That way you can also see what they're doing and what they're deleting. Again, there's lots of software out there for this to help you keep track of what they're posting so you don't miss anything. Because as with that calculator, we know that kids are awfully good at hiding things.
They are, Tom, and I think this is a great point in time that we reach into the mail sack.
All righty, off to the sack we go. And this week we have one from Hope here in Orlando.
She's from Orlando?
She is. She's local.
She heard about us?
She's got to be one of the 30.
She's one of the 30.
I tell you.
We'd love it if we can get up to 32 by the end of the day.
If we can get your kids listening to you, Tom, that's our 32 right there.
I could pull that off.
There we go. All right. So with that, Hope wants to know, is there any way to use her firewall to monitor her kids' activity?
Ooh, I like that.
That's a unique way to put it. Well, the different firewalls do have different applications to keep track of the websites they're going to. But even further than that, some ISPs now are allowing us to view the traffic that is going across our internet. It used to be years ago, if there was something happening within the house or the workplace, it would take an awful lot of software to determine what's going on. But these days, providers are realizing that they need to step up to the plate and help be that parent. And they can now produce reports to you that show how much time is being spent online, what websites are being visited. And so not just the firewall, but you can also lean on your internet service provider for help. So that's a great question, Hope. Between software, between the firewall, between the ISP, there's lots of options out there to help keep your kids safe.
And Hope, thank you so much for writing into the mail sack.
Always appreciated.
We love it. And listen, parents, one final bit of wisdom that I want to share. Excuse me. I think the internet is not a babysitter. So we've got to know that, and we have to stay on top of this.
That's right. And just like, you hear more and more these days when people are talking about fake news.
Oh, yeah.
I really wish that the internet had been around when I was a kid, because it would have been so much easier to make the honor roll, Tom. But
I hear that.
But it's important that you let your children know that they need to check the facts when they see something on the internet, not to take it to heart. Make sure that they rely on a couple different websites and reputable institutions for their content.
Great advice, Tom. Where can people get in touch with you if they need help with their Wi-Fi or their firewall?
We are at advancedsystemsolutions.com.
Well, thank you so much.
And yourself?
Tom. Hey, you can find me at ontargetdigitalmarketing.com.
And you are the web guru, helping to
guru.
Make,
did you call me a guru?
I did. It's well fitting, Tom.
You think?
I know.
Like, I see a guy with a big long white beard and a cane when you say guru.
Our viewers are seeing that as well.
Oh, thank you. So, Tom, listen, great show today. Super duper appreciate it. And thanks to Hope for writing in. A great show. I hope, parents, you got some great advice out of this. Be sure to tune in next week or whenever the heck we feel like creating the next one. And thanks for listening to the Tom Squared Tech Talk podcast. We're out.
Have a great day, everyone.
This podcast was recorded at the On Target Podcasting Studio.